Okay, guys, it's 2-minute drill time. As we get closer to the season, fans in the stands are getting less and less likely, or at least less and less populous. Who does this hurt the most, Seth?
Well, I think just from what I've been reading about what's going on in Europe with the closed-door soccer matches, I think it hurts. First of all, it hurts all home teams. That's what the studies have shown so far since the restart in Europe. So that alone is just going to be wild to watch how that changes. And I think specifically it changes how referees call the game, because they're not, there's no fans in the stands to get them to call what they want them to call. So I think it changes the whole landscape of the league, and it'll make for some interesting football.
Yeah, I mean that's the answer, right? It's the teams that have the biggest fan bases, but also the games where the fans are the most homogeneous. So I think of like New Orleans, the majority of their games, they're not a ton of Falcons games or fans at those games. You look at Green Bay as another one, Minnesota, Seattle, teams that had the biggest home field advantages prior to this season, I think are going to struggle the most as a result of that being taken away from them.
I'll tell you who it hurts the most. It hurts Jerry Jones the most, because that's how he makes all his game day revenue. That is what it's hurting. The game day revenue, the gate receipts, the fans and the concessions, that's where all the cash comes from for these individual teams, the stuff they don't have to share out to the Green Bay Packers or the Cleveland Browns. They get to pocket that. So Jerry's the guy that gets hurt the most with this.
Okay, so let's turn to on the field strategy stuff. Eric, are fullbacks valuable in football?
It's tough because obviously, when you look at some of these successful teams, they have been more successful when a fullback's on the field. Now, you have to adjust for the situation in which a fullback is playing, however. So when you look at, 21 personnel splits versus 11 personnel splits and so on and so forth, the 12 personnel splits are happening on early downs when the threat of a run or a pass is palpable, and that I think skews the data. When you look at the fullbacks over the course of the PFF era, there have been some good ones. Last season, the most valuable fullback was Patrick Ricard of the Baltimore Ravens. He was about a 1/10 of a win. So I just say, no, we have to adjust for circumstances, and the fullback sort of, along for the ride for some of these efficient offenses.
Yeah, and I think it's opportunity cost, right? If you're going to put a fullback on the field, who are you taking off? Are you taking off your third wide receiver? Are you taking off another tight end? No matter who you're taking off, it's probably a downgrade. And NFL teams know this. Even when you talk about guys like Kyle Juszczyk, who's this X-factor receiving threat, do-it-all fullback who's more of an H-back type player, Juszczyk played 210 snaps for the 49ers in the regular season last year. He played like a third as many of those snaps on special teams. Like, he is not a big part of this offense. Now, they scaled it up a little bit in the playoffs, but the 49ers know that it's not worth taking off a receiver or another tight end to put Juszczyk on the field most of the time. It's just not a great strategy overall.
I also think we have to look at, if we're going to talk about fullbacks being valuable in the past, and then why are they not valuable now, I think we have to look at how offenses have changed. And when the fullbacks who were catching a lot of passes, maybe that was in more of those older West Coast style split back offenses, or the fullback was more of a bigger tailback rather than the blocking back that we think of now. And so I think these new fullbacks, they just can't be as valuable because they don't do as much. And like Sam said, even when you have such an elite player, he's just not on the field as much, and he just doesn't do anything on crucial downs as much.
Yeah, and the strategy, what is the takeaway? Okay, draft more fullbacks. I don't think that there are 32 Kyle Juszczyks in the world at this point. And the same, I think, can be said for second tight ends if you want to go that way as well. Now, the Washington football team is the current name for the formerly Washington Redskins. Guys, Sam, what's a team name in the NFL for which now the Washington football team is a better one?
There are no team names in the NFL for which that is a better name. It's not even a good placeholder name. Like, honestly, the Washington TBDs was starting to grow on me as a placeholder name. Even just limiting it to Washington and cutting out the mascot entirely, I think would have been better than the Washington football team. So yeah, I can't say I'm in love with this. It's certainly not an upgrade over any other team.
Okay, it's bad. Like let's put it out there. It's just bad, and it'll continue to be bad for the whole season. But I wanted to list some names. We're gonna go hockey here for a second, so I apologize to our listeners. But there's a hockey league called the East Coast Hockey League, which doesn't even just play in the East Coast, and they've had some of the best names. So we have the Victoria Salmon Kings, which maybe Washington Salmon Kings. You never know. I like the Columbus Cottonmouths because we've all been there, of course. And I also like Miami Matadors. So those are 3 names from the East Coast Hockey League that I'm sure will never be brought up again on the two-minute drill.
Guys, I don't think you understand what replacement level is. There's a division in the NFL right now that has 2 teams who have replacement level nicknames. The Houston Oilers moving to Tennessee keep the name, just like the Colts when they moved to Indianapolis kept the name. They're the best name in their division by a country mile. The Tennessee Titans are a name that's worse than the Washington football team. And the Houston Texans is also about as lazy as it gets and should not be.
No.
They're in the same cluster here. So, Washington, good on you for at least starting the process of changing your name. And right now, you're in the bottom 10% of the league, but not by yourself.
You want to get rid of me and get back to more great PFF YouTube content? All you have to do is push that button right there and subscribe. Thanks for watching.